video on how to take apart a carburetor and clean it. This particular carburetor is from my motorcycle, which is a 97 Suzuki Marauder. And let's start off with a simple overview of this particular carburetor. Right here, this part will connect to your rear cylinder, and this part connects to your air box. This is where the air goes into your carburetor. Right here we have the throttle setup and the idler screw to change the idle on your carburetor. This bottom main part is what's called the fuel bowl. That's where your fuel mixture or your fuel will accumulate. We have a drain plug to drain it. Down here is a inlet hose for your fuel to come in. This is where your fuel comes out and goes to the other carburetor. Simple breather nozzle. And the top part is the diaphragm and the needle for your actual carburetor. We'll get into that more later. All that you'll need for this project is a few simple screwdrivers and an Allen wrench if that's what your carburetor has. And for cleaning the carbs, I recommend a cleaner called Gum Out is the name brand in an aerosol can, and that's what I've found to work great for me. Once you've actually pulled your carburetor out of whatever you're working on, then you will be able to bring it into a bench. I recommend a well-ventilated area, and you're going to be draining gas in this next step, so make sure you have somewhere to put the gas. I've already actually drained mine out since I'm downstairs in my basement. It's a little chilly out, but to drain it, you just take this screw out on the bottom of the fuel bowl, simply twist that out, and then you'll be able to tip the carburetor up, and it will all drain out. Next step, after all the fuel is drained out, we're going to be taking off this fuel bowl. And to do that, there's only 4 screws, Phillips head, on the bottom of it. And you can just tip it right over and start unscrewing each screw. Once you have those 4 bolts out, this fuel bowl will pop right off. And then now looking at the inside, we can see that we have the floats right here, which once those are activated, there's enough fuel and it will start draining out. Right here is your main jet. That's where we'll start. You can put your screwdriver on it and tighten it all the way. These main jets should all be all the way tight. So then once it's tight for sure, you can loosen it. Once that's out, there's actually a hole through this for the jet, and then you can spray your cleaner through that to make sure that there's nothing clogging it. You can also spray cleaner down the actual tube, also making sure that there's no clogs, and to be sure that your carburetor stays running. Now, as you can see, I've put the fuel bowl back into place, didn't touch anything else in there, and then we're going to flip the carburetor over, and then we're going to go in from this top part. There's just 4 bolts again that you take out. Mine are Allen wrenches because I just replaced them since my other ones are starting to strip out. And yeah, we're going to take that off, and when you take it off, be careful because there is a spring in there under pressure. Alright, so now I have all the 4 bolts out, and I will show you what it looks like when it comes off. Again, be careful because there's a spring under there. First time I did this, I lost this spring. So there's the cover. You can just take the spring right out, and then that's what it's going to look like right here. Here we have a diaphragm holding this plastic metal cylinder that holds your needle, and you can actually pull this right out. And then right there is your needle, which controls the fuel. For cleaning this part of the carburetor, it's not too complicated. You can look at the needle, see if there's any buildup on there. Most likely there won't be. It's not. You can always check it. Make sure your diaphragm, this black plastic here, has no cracks in it or anything, and it looks like it's in decent shape. You can also look to see if it's covered in dirt or oily substances. Be something to clean. And then you can look down into the carburetor. Not so much in here, but down in this cylinder opening here. That's, if there's dirt in there, that's something that you're going to want to clean out. Maybe look into where that's coming from. And then once you've done all that and cleaned all that, you can put this diaphragm back into place, which just slides right down in. And then there's going to be a little tab on the black part of your diaphragm, and that'll line up in the metal, the actual carburetor. You want to make sure that's in the exact same spot, and then you have to push this black down in there so it is seated properly. Otherwise you'll have a lot of problems once you try to start it. So to go over a few things that I missed in my original overview, this little screw right here, that is what you call your pilot screw. That adjusts the mixture of air and fuel. It's a very important screw, and you want to make sure not to strip that out, because that was actually the problem with my carburetor, is it was seized up and stripped out in there, and it took me a while to get that out. And then another thing is this open hole right here. That is for your choke cable. There's not a whole lot you can do with that. It's just where your choke screws into. But now that we've gone through the fuel bowl and the needle, you can check a few other easy things. This is your throttle plate, and you can twist your throttle and make sure that it is working properly, just as long as it seems smooth and it's moving along with what you're doing. It's a good way to check that. You can also look through the other end, and you can put your finger in there and make sure that there's a decent amount of tension and it's smooth when you're moving that little black piece in there. That was the part of the needle that we just pulled out, that plastic. So you can just make sure that's moving smooth. And also when you look through, you can open the throttle plate so you can see light on the other side. Just make sure there's no buildup of dirt or grime or oily stuff or whatever. Okay, a few other smaller spots that you could have buildup is that there is a jet in this little area right here. This is the part that goes to your cylinder. You can take that out and spray your cleaner through it. Just simply screw it back in once it's free of buildup. There was also one other similar smaller jet in the fuel bowl that I didn't mention. That same deal, just spray your cleaner through it. It's pretty simple. One thing to mention on those jets is every time you're going to take one out, make sure that you tighten it all the way first, counting how many turns it is until tight. So then after it's tight, then you can take it all the way out. But then once you're replacing it, you're going to want to tighten it again, but remembering how many turns that it was loose when you first took it out, so you can get it to the same exact spot. Once your carb's clean and you think your bike should be running the way it should, if it doesn't seem like it is, and then your next step is to look at your factory recommendations for this pilot screw, because these are never tightened all the way down. So on this particular carburetor, it recommends that it's turned 2.5 turns out. So what that means is you're going to take your screwdriver and tighten it until it's seated lightly, all the way tight. And then once that is, and then you're going to make 2 full turns. Usually if you go in half-turn increments at a time, it's easier to keep track of how far you've gone. So right now this one is turned 2.5 turns out from its original position. And then you can do the same on your front carburetor if you have 2 carburetors, or however many carburetors you have. And then what you're going to want to do is keep turning those screws very lightly while your motorcycle or other vehicle is running. And you turn those lightly until you hear the highest RPMs, or the highest rev, when your engine sounds like it's running the smoothest. Then that's how you know that you're at your most efficient point. And then at that point, it's simple. You just turn this knob to wherever you want your idle to be. So if you think it's idling too fast, you simply turn this out. Idling too slow, you turn it in. And those are just some simple adjustments.